Okay, I'm starting it. Okay. Okay, hi guys. Can you see me and hear me clearly? Just respond with a yes or no so that I know that nothing is wrong out here and everything is clear. Okay, perfect. So you can hear me and see me clearly. Uh, I welcome Ali today. So Ali, just let us know if everybody can hear you and see you clearly. So just
Hi everyone.
say something.
Hi everyone. I hope everyone can hear me.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Yeah, everything is clear. So I welcome you all to this session wherein I and Ali are going to talk about his success. For all of you or any of you who don't know about him, he's All India rank 3 this year for RBI in RBI Grade B 2018 examination. I'll be sharing his marks very soon. I'll be sharing his educational background, everything related to him. So let's have an applause, a virtual applause, or an emoticon applause for Ali this time. And Ali, anything you would want to say before I start with your educational and your other backgrounds?
Nah, man, I'm good. I mean, let's get this over with.
Nice, nice, nice way to start, man.
Sure.
Okay, okay. So on a serious note, let's have some information to you guys about Ali. Well, he's had a very modest and simple schooling life. All of us studied in a variety of schools in India. He did his bachelor's in economics, BA Economics honors from Symbiosis School of Economics in Pune. Okay, so nothing very fancy, very modest, very simple, I would say. And he graduated in the year 2016, so he's very young. He's 23 as of now, very young guy. And he got selected in PNB after his graduation, and he started working in PNB in the year 2017. He got in touch with me as per him in 2017. At that time, he was in Calcutta, and he started preparing for the exam in 2017. He gave the exam, he gave the first attempt in 17 without any preparation, did not get through, and
I
then
was out in phase two.
he was out in phase two. So he cleared his phase one in 2017 as well, but out in phase two, so he realized something was wrong, and he started preparing in October, November 2017. So towards the later side of the year, and he had a preparation of about 8 9 months before he took the exam in 2018. Uh, just to make it clear, no prior knowledge of Indian financial system, no prior knowledge of ESI, just because no history of UPSC preparation. Pretty good in economics, pretty good in finance, but Indian financial system and ESI, nothing as of after at the time of his preparations. Okay, a quick review of his marks, which are amazing, I would say. ESI 73.75, ESI 73.75, Finance Management 89.25, English 60.5, and Interview 46. Okay, some people are saying that Ali's voice is a bit low. So if you can,
Yeah, I mean, so I'll try to speak again and now say, hello, can you hear me? Hello?
he's audible here. Is he audible to everybody out there? Suraj, Juhi, you can just respond with a yes or no whether it's better now or not. Okay, let's assume that it's better this way. Okay, so his marks, since all of you can hear me, audible, he's audible. Audible, good. Okay. ESI 73.75, FM 89.25, almost 90. So let me round it off. ESI 74, FM 90, English 60, very less compared to other areas. I'll explain to you why. And interview 46, amazing marks. So almost highest in FM. We don't know the highest marks, but I'm assuming that this is the highest because I think 90 is as good as it gets. uh, you probably cannot get more than that. And interview 46, the highest in the country, cannot get more than that. Highest marks in interview and highest in FM, very respectable marks in ESI, less marks in English. We'll discuss uh, why that happened. Now, a little bit about my personal view when I started teaching him, when he got in touch with me, and he told me about his past. He told me about his graduation and about his PNB experience, and then he took the course. He started preparing, and he would call me often, and we would have some chat about his doubts and all the things, all the problems he was facing. So one thing that I saw, okay, both the positives and the negatives. It was pretty smart that I recognized because the questions were very good and not very vague. He would always do his research before calling me and make sure that whatever he's asking is not just available on the internet very easily. Okay, so I would know that okay, he's done his research, he's done his work before giving me a call, and now it's my responsibility to tell him what's right and what's wrong. So always asked very good questions, and that increased my interest towards him, because whenever he would call, I would always take the call, and I knew that this guy needs some attention and he can get through. He's pretty smart. uh, One thing that I always also noticed was this: he was always very happy-go-lucky. Now there was a disaster that he did at the time of interview, and we'll be discussing that as well. He would be out on the street right now if that had not worked. uh, he never took a lot of stress in whatever he did, so that was pretty interesting. He always worked hard and studied harder because he was working all the time in PNB, always stressed out, and at the same time studied harder. So it's always work hard and play harder, party harder, but for him it was worked hard and studied harder. Okay. He cracked the exam while working in PNB. That's commendable. That's an uphill task for anybody out there. And one thing that I noticed was that immediately when I started talking with him, he was pretty good at English. So I told him it's going to be difficult that you get good marks in English. That is going to be an uphill task because you're so good at English. So getting good marks in English is going to be difficult. That's how RP exam goes. Okay, so let's start with you now. I have had enough of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with what to do and what not to do in phase one, phase two, and interview. Okay, before and if you have any words of wisdom, so to say, then please share
Yeah,
that. Otherwise, we'll start. Yeah.
not. I mean, there's not a lot of wisdom to go by. It's an examination. You have to clear it. And I mean, the most important thing I could tell candidates, it's that remember you have to clear the examination, not master the subject. So that's like the most important tidbit you could go by. Because at the end of the day, nobody really cares that, oh, if you're a master at finance and you didn't clear that, all you've got to do is clear it. Anywho, so moving on. Thank you very much for the introduction. As Anuj mentioned, I am an economics graduate, so there is some help to it, but there isn't a lot. So I mean, as the preconceptions go, that ooh, economics ki zarurat hai. Oh, yeah, I will be bilingual, but I'll be English more often. Like I'll speak in English more often. So I mean, there are lots of preconceptions to this examination. I think Anuj, there's still a problem with the audio.
No, it's fine here. I think it's fine. Not audible. Mm, one second, one second. Just hold on.
No, is it not audible or is it extremely low? Like there's a big difference in that.
Yes, yes. I think it's low just because probably their sound system is not well, or I don't know. Okay, it is audible, so there's nothing wrong with the system, but it is low. So what
All
you
right,
can
all
do
right.
instead is you can keep the mic closer to you.
Closer, yeah. I'll close it. I'll keep it closer to me. That's not a problem.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I think this should go better.
Yeah. Now I
So all
think now
right.
it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, good words of praises, but I nobody really targets all India rank one, two, or three. Everybody targets to clear the examination, and then afterwards, do we look for any rank? So that's how it goes. So, anyways, like again, like as Anuj has mentioned, I have no UPSC background. I have no particular background which other people have, right? So this is like I prepared for RBI because I always wanted to get into the Reserve Bank of India. I always thought only governors got in from somewhere, and I don't know. Like I never knew what the recruitment process was. So it was interesting when I found out when I was at PNB during my training session at PNB. they told me that there's an examination for RBI. So I'm like, oh, well done. I should try this stuff. Then it went from there. You then a quick Google search about RBI tells you who are the leaders. So I contacted Anuj sometime in the October November of 2017. However, the real game began like once you actually go towards the closer months of preparation. So I was in posted in Calcutta back in the February of 2018. So that's when we started. So again, the exam is in three phases. That's for all candidates to know. So one bit of advice is that know the exam inside and out. Like you should know everything about the examination, the phases, the marks, the subjects, everything should be known to you. Like even before you take it, you should know it like the back of your hand. It's very important that you know what the rules of the game are even before like you start playing the game, right? So we've got phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So all of these phases have different skill sets that RBI requires, like RBI tests of you, and eventually you go. But then a common area across the board is general awareness, current affairs. So a huge chunk of your focus should go there. Like that goes without saying. I mean, if you talk of percentage, we're talking phase 1, 80 on one, like 80 on 200. So that's like what a huge 40% of your chunk goes to GK. And then in phase 2, it gets even higher because if you consider the value of general awareness in economics, finance, management, and English, the essay writing, it's close to 66 to 70%. Right. So that is like that is serious weightage to one particular area, and it's important to understand why, because this is so vague. It's difficult to prepare. At the same time, it's also the easiest to prepare because once you know it, it's either yes or no question. I know it or I don't know it. Right. So moving to phase 1. Now, phase 1 was pretty much home for me because this is close to what a lot of banking examinations have: one-liner GKs or static GKs and stuff like that, like names of parks. Sometimes they've got like Himalayan range. Sometimes they've got like a name of a company. So it's pretty much home. So again, being like a core student, I'll tell you one thing: I have not used any books. Not one book had I used. Like all these famous books that go by, I didn't have the time to use books or refer to any books. So books went out the window. That's one thing. So here's how I went. I used the internet to the fullest extent I had. So I had Anuj's course with me, and Anuj has a lot of GK. Like it's more than what you ask for. Like I dare anyone to complete the amount of GK he gives. Like it's impossible. He'll give you like a 200-page binder for like phase 1 GK, and that's impossible to like that's impossible to cover. But it just tells you that what all is there, right? So again, so I use two major sources for phase 1 GK because phase 1 is like its own set of GK. I use whatever Anuj handed out, and also I used Bankers Adda ka Hindu review. So Bankers Adda every month on the third or fourth they put out their Hindu reviews, and it's pretty useful because the best part is not only do they have one-liner reviews of whatever happened in the month, which is from the Hindu, where like that's like a competitive exam Bible paper, but also they've got a static portion to it. So, for example, if Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits, say, let's say Israel, so they not only give you the capital of Israel, also the currency of Israel, but they also give you like all the other bits of information that are usually asked in competitive examinations. So it's very, very helpful for candidates who are preparing for such examinations because all these questions are around this area. So that's like the thing. Again, so phase 1 wasn't that big of an issue for me, simply because I do have some CAT background with me. I have prepared for CAT. So maths, reasoning, English, all of that comes from CAT training. So I wasn't really worried about that. But what I did like do is that I molded myself as per the RBI pattern. So what I did was I bought previous year's mock series. I disregarded the GK questions for the questions, the reasoning questions, and the English questions. So it was decent practice. So again, this is a very personal thing because I'm fine with aptitude questions. I only practiced to 5 to 8 mocks, and I was pretty confident in clearing phase 1. I mean, in 2017, when I cleared phase 1, I attempted. It was a very difficult paper. I attempted close to 10 questions, and I cleared that time. And this year, the paper was easy compared to 2017, and I had attempted 157 questions this year, and I scored, I think, around 122 or 123. So I was 100% certain when I walked out of the pre that I will make it to the mains examination, and that's a very good feeling to have.
Okay,
Right.
so what we're going to
So
have
that's one.
is
So if
okay. So okay,
phase 1.
okay. 1 second, 1 second. So till now we've discussed GK for phase 1. Two sources he used: Banker Sadda for the reason that he was getting static and the current affairs together, and whatever I would give him. So we did not have the magazine yet. I would just give him either daily or monthly reviews, and he would just go through that. Okay, that was one. Other areas, one second.
I'm blocked.
Yes, there's some problem here. Okay, other areas. Yes, other areas other than GK, he would have quant, reasoning, and English. So for quant and reasoning, as per his information to me, he used CAT material and YouTube, two sources, very extensively. He did not go through the basics yet again, just because he was clear about them beforehand because he had CAT background. Okay, so even if you're starting a new CAT material, YouTube, one of the best sources to use other than GA, for GA, Bankasadda and my sources. That's what he used. Very clear about that. Okay. Now, two questions I have for you before we move forward. Students who struggle in maths, what to do for them? What should they be doing? Because there are a lot of students out there who struggle in maths.
So okay, so mathematics is an area that not only like students, like it's like a terror around the world for everyone. So again, if you're not good at maths, you don't really have to go kill the paper. You've got to clear the sectional cutoff. The paper gives you ample opportunities to score elsewhere, right? But here's the thing. There are always in every section there are difficult questions and there are easy questions. Make sure you always hit the easy questions. So study the basics, do that, and always hit the easy questions, right? That's the most important thing you could do. So for mathematics, I believe practice, get down with the basics, understand how the answers are built. I mean, and use the sources. So if you okay, so if you're not following any particular coaching, not everyone takes coaching, you could go to the YouTube channel. There's a YouTube channel, it's called Study Smart by Chandrahas. I think that's a brilliant channel, like for anything quant related. It's got basics, it's got that everything, right?
Hmm.
So that's how it works.
Okay, so what you're specifically saying is management of questions, basically trying to find out the easy questions and covering them before running into the tougher questions and wasting your time. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
No, and the thing is, see, some people are good at quants.
Hmm.
So an easy question for them will be a difficult question for somebody else. But then there are always some sitters, like you've got to attempt the sitters, right? So make sure you're of that capability. You don't have to go out there and kill like 20 questions and 30 questions in quant. But yeah, attempting good 8 to 10 selected questions to clear the sectional cutoff, that's it.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, one more question. I think we discussed about the correct blend of accuracy and attempts. A lot of students ask that
Yes.
and are confused. So, a quick light on that, like,
Well, so when I used to study for CAT, they used to tell us in CAT, if you're attempting quant, it better be 100%. So I think that's like a golden rule to follow. If you're attempting a question in logical reasoning or mathematics, you might as well get it correct. Like you need to kill it. So a good blend of accuracy would be 100% in quant, 100% in reasoning, and then you can leave some leeway for GK and for English because English is subjective. So you should always try that. Well, let's say if you attempt 10 questions in maths, you should get at least 9 of them right. It's always important to have accuracy before anything else, and you should solve it correctly because since, okay, so it's 120 minutes and 200 questions. So essentially, when you're reading the question, there should be a decision of yes or no that you're going to solve it or not. And if you choose to solve it, yes, you have to solve it correctly because if you don't solve it correctly, you're losing a lot of time.
but at the same time, what about attempts? So, the question is, okay, you have accuracy, you know, whatever questions you're solving, you are bound to get it right. But what if that attempt is too low? How do you
See,
manage?
see, the paper dictates attempts. 2017, the cutoff for maths was like what, 3.5 marks. So I think in 20 minutes, people can solve 4 questions correctly if they're dead sure about the 4 questions, right? So so that's the thing. So the paper dictates attempts. You should always understand that. But at the same time, if you do want a healthy attempt, I think anything above 100 is a good attempt on a medium paper. And if the paper gets easier, you should just pull your attempts to 120, 130, 140, depending on whatever the paper allows.
Okay, okay. There's some problem there, but it's okay. Okay, one student that has asked because it's so relevant to your background, and the question is about experience. So how do students who are working and at the same time studying, how do they manage? So what was the golden rule that you followed that, you know, helped you prepare alongside with your studies, alongside with
See,
your work?
the golden rule is do what works for you,
Hmm.
right? I mean, you should know yourself better than others. So if you know that you're very very bad at math, start practicing maths. If you know that you're good at something, right? Again, so as a working professional myself, most important skill you can have is time management and like proper utilization. So work extra hard at work so you can end your day quicker, come back home. If your work does not permit you to come home early, then find time in the morning or at night, depending if you're a morning person or night person. I am personally a night person, so that helps me go. But if somebody is a morning person, you can make time in the morning because that's important,
Hmm.
right? And as a working profession, again, time is of the essence. So once you study something, make sure you study it well enough not to revert to it again, go back to the basics. Simple practice should help you understand and remember the concepts. So that's very important.
Okay.
I think working professionals have it better. Trust me, we understand the importance of time because all these people who were selected this year, a
Hmm.
majority of them are working professionals. So it kind of goes that way.
So what we're saying is, it's more about respecting the time that you have at hand rather than having more time, right?
Yes, and also it's also about commitment.
Hmm.
I mean, I have to add that.
Hmm.
Like sometimes I would come home at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I would eat whatever is there, and I would still give that 1.5 hour just for the sake of it. I wouldn't do much, but I'm committed to putting some hours in it because it does give you a sense of satisfaction and not of panic.
Exactly. And probably something that you followed. Okay, we'll be talking about two things now towards the end. Something that he follows, which is active reading and not passive reading, which a lot of us still do in India. And secondly, about his interview disaster that we're going to talk about. Third thing, now that we mentioned about commitment, did you use your phone while you were studying? Because a lot of us, including me, often do it subconsciously. We keep our phone, on the table while we're studying, and we realize later that in the 1.5 hour that we took out, we studied nothing.
Well, it depends because I do use my phone to Google stuff,
Hmm.
but like I use my phone for like say productive purposes like googling stuff or like saving PDFs and stuff because again, like the internet on my phone is much handy. But other than that, I don't really like. Okay, so if it's WhatsApp interfering in my studies, I don't like do that. Like I don't believe in like studying on WhatsApp or studying on Facebook group. Like I am a part of those groups, but only for the information they give and not actually studying from them. So like I mean, you also run that. Like you run like a Telegram quiz. Like I haven't attempted a single one of those quiz because I just don't know. I would waste too much time on Telegram, so I don't do that. So that's one thing I do follow.
Hmm. So basically, it's about creating the right balance between social media, internet, and your phone and your studies. Because a lot of us probably rely too much nowadays on social media or other platforms
Yeah,
and end up wasting a lot of time, right?
yeah.
Okay, perfect. Let's move to phase two now. A lot of questions are coming from phase two.
All
So,
right.
okay, let's start with what not to do for phase two for all the three, subjects: FM, ESI, and English. Let's start with ESI. Let's start with the common things related to all three: FM, ESI, and English, and then to the area of what exactly to do.
All
All
right.
right.
So,
So,
finance
finance
management,
management,
ESI,
ESI,
English,
English,
all of
all
them
of them
have the
have the
common
common
thread
thread
of
of
general
general
awareness,
awareness,
GK,
GK,
GS,
GS,
whatever you
whatever
want to
you want to
call it.
call it.
And
And
that
that
like
like
sort of
sort of
takes a
takes a
toll on
toll on
everyone,
everyone,
especially
especially
in
in
the
the
ESI
ESI
section,
section,
because the
because the
ESI
ESI
section
section
feels
feels
like
like
I've
I've
studied
studied
so
so
much, but I
much,
have
but
not
I have
made
not
any
made any
progress
progress
whatsoever. Like
whatsoever. Like,
if you study
if you
finance
study
and
finance and
management, you
management,
can
you
say, "Ha,
can say,
today
"Ha,
I've
today
covered,
I've
let's say,
covered,
human
let's say,
resource
human resource
management, or today
management,
I've
or today
covered
I've
bond
covered bond
market, or let's
market,
say
or
today
let's
I've
say today
covered
I've covered the
some
some
particular
particular
model. I
model.
can
I
score
can
well in
score
that
well in that
area."
area."
But
But
ESI does not
ESI
give
does
you
not
that
give you that
comfort.
comfort.
So I think
So
the
I
most
think the most
important thing to
important
do for
thing to do for
GK is
GK is
have a
have a
primary
primary
source
source
with
with
which you're
which you're
very well
very
versed
well
with. Like you
versed with.
should
Like
know
you
it
should know it
in and out.
in and out.
And then
And then
any other
any
source
other
is a
source is
welcome
a
source,
welcome
but you
source,
should
but you should
reread your
reread your
material over
material
and over
over and
again.
over again.
That's of
That's
utmost
of utmost
importance.
importance.
So
So
that, I
that,
mean,
I
my
mean, my
primary
primary
sources for
sources
phase
for
two
phase two
were
were
two to
two
three.
to
I mean,
three.
like
I
I
mean, like
used
I
to use
used
it a
to use
lot.
it a lot.
I've used
I've
Vision
used Vision
IAS
IAS
Vision IAS
Vision IAS
capsules, those
capsules,
monthly
those monthly
capsules they
capsules they
produced.
produced.
I used
I
them
used
on a
them on a
very, like,
very,
it was a
like,
very
it was a very
demanding
demanding
basis.
basis.
I use it
I use it
every time I'd
every time
study,
I'd
I'd use
study,
them
I'd use
first.
them first.
Then I would
Then I
use
would
your
use your
material.
material
Again, your
again.
material is extremely thorough and extremely large. So
Hmm.
given the paucity of time, I did not have a lot
Not
of
have a
time
lot
on
of
my
time on my
hands.
hands.
I would
I
use
would
your
use.
material after I covered Vision material. Like, you had like what, 250 pages of material.
Hmm.
So I mean, that's, I can understand it's from a wide variety of sources,
Hmm.
but it's just that 250 pages is like almost impossible to cover in one sitting. So I would cover it during the weekends, but during weekdays I would stick to my primary sources of Vision IAS, and sometimes I would use Insight on India. Again, you have to understand that phase phase 2 has also a one marker GK area for both finance and for ESI, and those one markers are very, very similar to those, again, those phase 1 GA questions. So you have to, like, again, prepare the same thing. So I use bankers adda again, like, so the idea is fewer sources but thorough reading, and read it again and again and again. So that helps,
Hmm.
because again, I am not a very heavy note maker. I don't like write lots of notes and make notebooks. I would usually write in the columns of that.
Hmm.
And also, let's say if I read something somewhere else, I would skip it in the other source. I would not waste time on it. So if I had read, let's say, GST, or if I had read any like the banks board bureau or something of that sort in your materials, I would skip it in the Visions material, simply because I don't really need to push on that very hard. I was actively looking for more stuff that I could cover and more ground to cover. So I think
Okay.
that really helps.
Okay. So what he's basically saying is, rather than using multiple sources, he would rely on one or two sources for covering everything. And secondly, uh, he would always involve himself in active reading. That means that if you've already covered GST from one source, and you are, while you're covering the other source, and you land up on GST, rather than covering it, you just skip it, so that you save time. So a lot of students, what they do is, they repeat they repeat the same thing again from the other source, just out of the fear that they might miss out on something that would be important for the exam. But you have to take that risk. You cannot again and again revise everything in such a short span of time. It's better
See,
to
revision.
revision is important.
Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah, revision comes only after you're done studying.
yes, yes, yes.
So I mean, when you're revising, you start revising properly.
Hmm.
But when you're out looking for more stuff, you might as well skip the stuff you have read before and cover more ground. I mean, that helps a lot. Also, again, so a part of general studies is the schemes run by Government of India. That is a very active part of social issues, right? I mean, of course, economic schemes are there. So again, schemes I covered from the stuff Anuj gave me from Vision IS. So Vision IS has like a entire binder of schemes, and that's important. Like, you cover it heart and nail. And the best part is they put it in proper order. That, okay, Ministry of Finance, X number of schemes, Ministry of Social Justice, X number of schemes, Ministry of X, so many Y number of schemes. So that helps you, that even if you don't, okay, so sometimes RBI asks the question, okay, this is the scheme, which ministry is it from? So I mean, just by reading from which ministry has which schemes, you have 1 or 2 marks already in your hands. So yeah, you've
Yes.
got to be smart about scoring.
Okay, so number one done. Not to use multiple sources. Pick up a primary source, one supplementary source, and keep that in mind. The second point, okay, you mentioned about multiple books, because a lot of students use multiple books. Did you use any books at all for phase two, or not at all?
I don't have the time to read books.
Hmm.
It's a full-time job.
So you used no books at all for your prep.
Okay, so I'll tell students one very important thing.
Hmm.
RBI's exam is dynamic. Every couple of years or so, and right now, at least every year or so, RBI has been hiring people. So the exam cannot be from a single book, because there are repeaters every year, right? So if just one book, and how did it work? It doesn't work that way. RBI is a dynamic exam, hence their sources are also dynamic. So that's how it works. So if it is books you're asking, books are good for if you have completely zero background, or you've got ample of time in it, like if you have 1 year for the examination. But the thing is, most people don't have 1 year for the examination. So a book, I cannot recommend a book because I didn't use too many books. But I'll give you an advice how to skip the books altogether. That's what I did if I did not know something in finance or management. all you do is RBI gives a syllabus. Like there's a syllabus on the official website whenever it comes out. You take a printout of that syllabus, right? And you Google all of that. In your free time, start Googling every point RBI has put out. And trust me, you will learn a lot more in a much shorter time than if you went searching for books and then searching for topics and chapters within that book. It's much easier to Google.
Hmm.
I see a lot of candidates asking, okay, does RBI allow this or does RBI have that? I think it's much better to use Google rather than put it on Facebook.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, okay. So rather than using books, you used a lot of Google, and at the same time, you used the sources that were provided by me when you were preparing for phase two, because you did not have enough time to prepare
No,
through
there's no
books.
point. I mean, the like the primary reason
Hmm.
I subscribe to coaching
Hmm.
is that you're the one collecting the sources and put compiling it for me to utilize,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So that's the only reason I bought a course. Otherwise, I would have gone looking for it myself. But then I would have spent more time wasting.
Hmm.
I would have wasted so much more time just looking for sources. So it's better I'll just read whatever you give me, and if I find it worthwhile, then I continue reading. If I don't like it,
Hmm.
I'll go search my own.
Hmm. Okay, okay. So I'll summarize it. Phase two, finance and management. What you had told me before also. Theory, as
This is
you've
only
just.
for ESI. I'll go to finance very well, very soon, because finance is like an area people are asking constantly in the chat,
Yes,
and
yes.
because of the high score, they kind of have an issue with it.
Okay, so let's come to that. How 90? How did you get to 90 in finance and
I'll tell
management?
you how did I get to 90. I was almost certain of 80 because okay, so this year RBI stuck to the syllabus to the letter. Whatever RBI provided in their syllabus, they stuck to it to the damn letter, like right down the line, right? So that's one thing. Again, so, finance and management, I thoroughly went through every bit of material I got from you because, again, you had it topic wise. And after that, if I did not get something, I would straight away call you. Like, I mean, I had the liberty of just calling you straight off the bat and asking, Bhaiya, ye batao, kya hua? I need to know this. Additionally, what I did was, so when you Google these topics, right? Here's like a very pro tip. It's a pro tip. When you Google all of these finance and management topics, or even this ESI topics, go to Google News. So Google has a news section. You type that topic in, search it, and you will get all the current affairs regarding that particular topic. And I think that's like a very quick hack to understand the topic and the current affairs in one fellow shot. So that's one thing. Other than that, constant reading and also keywords. So most people disregard management saying that oh it's easy I've read it ratta karna hai. But management is so close, like democratic leadership, laissez-faire, and like so many types of leaderships, and the only difference between them is one particular keyword: total freedom, restraint freedom, and stuff like that. So that's very very important to see. So understand that there are very minute differences in each form of leadership or whatever you're studying, and then when the question comes on that, go for it. And also, I think my mock taking strategy really helped me. I'll tell everyone how I took mocks. You can, I mean, I think I should post it up. Every mock I took for phase two has a score of zero,
Hmm.
straight off the bat, like zero. ESI zero, FM zero, everything zero.
Hmm.
Simply because most people they are afraid of taking mocks because they're afraid of low scores. And when they do end up getting low scores, they think, I must study. And they forget taking mocks. The mock is the best way to prepare because it gives you the whole syllabus. When you start studying, you can only prepare one area of the syllabus. Let's say you can only prepare financial theory, you can only prepare some numericals, you can only prepare some sort of model. But a mock gives you the entire summary. It's going to come with you the entire course. So what I did was I subscribed to Olive Board and I subscribed to Practice Mock, and I did have your mocks. So all of them I have zeros, straight zeros, like nothing. So number one, that kicks the fear out of scoring low marks because you've got the lowest marks there is. And remember, you could fail in like 1,000 marks. What really matters is your final score. So that's what you should be working towards, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's very very important. And how I did was, so most people would study for let's say 2 hours and then take a 1.5 hour mock. I would just zero mock and take the mock, and afterwards I would study along the mock. So if it's an answer I knew, I'd get more confidence in the area. If it's an answer I thought I should have known that I'm good at this topic and I messed up, I would figure out why. Is it like a conceptual weakness or is just like hard luck that the questions I messed up?
Hmm.
And if it's some area I don't know at all, I know automatically which area to go and study because I don't know. I have no heads or tails of this area, so I would go and revise that area. So I think that really helped because I had a question bank. So I took what close to 20 odd mocks. So 65 questions into 20. That's a lot of questions to practice.
I think it's very interesting because what you did is what I've been explaining to the students of the current batch also. So what happens is I give out a particular PDF and a video, and there is a mock related to that particular section. Now that we have chapter wise test, but there would always be questions which are not related to whatever I've taught. They are slightly related but not explained in the PDF or the video. And they would call me and they'll be like, "Sir, it's not explained in the video. Is it important or not?" And I tell them, "Of course it's important. I've given it in the mock, so it is important. But I want you to Google it, search for it, research for it about it a little bit, and write it on your own. Do some work yourself as well, other than me spoon feeding you." So I think it's very interesting. You already knew that we have to go reverse, pick up the mock, practice or study everything, taking the mock in mind. What we have, and that is something that all of us have to get used to, in addition to the other things that you used, other methods of study that you used that were way different, way different than how we study normally. Okay, so please keep it in mind. The method that he used in phase 2 specifically was how he took mocks instead
Zero.
of
That's the
z.
easiest strategy.
Yeah. It's an easy strategy, and it's basically understanding how your mind works. So he understood how his mind would react to whatever he would do, and he took advantage of that rather than falling prey to the fallacies that his mind was present. Okay, English descriptive. How such a low score? How did you manage to get such a low score?
I don't know. I wrote an essay. I think I wrote a pretty good essay. It was an essay on demonetization. I mean, anywhere else I should have done well. But again, if it's a system, it's a system, right? Like some areas, the whole thing of a standardized test is that it is rigged in favor of some and rigged like against some people. So it really can't, like, some people gain, some people lose. So you really can't blame the game. So again, if you want descriptive preparation, right?
Hmm.
I don't know, because all you've got to do is current affairs. So read a lot of current affairs, and I think framing an essay is very important. Learning how to frame an essay. So if it's a 300-word essay or like a 250-word essay, that's what usually RBI asks for, right? So again, an essay demands three things: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. The body must have either one paragraph or two paragraph. The paragraphs open with a topic sentence, and the topic sentence must have a topic conclusion. So this is the basic structure of an essay. However, I think with keeping RBI in mind, content as well as writing is important. But to be honest, I really can't tell you what RBI is looking for. I think Anuj told me this right from the get go. He said that you will not score well in English, do not rely on English. And I said, Nahi, bro, I'm good at English. He said, that's why.
Yeah. And that actually worked in your favor because you got so good marks, such just good marks in finance, just because you knew. And I told you again and again, English, get out of it, get out of
And
the
I
bubble.
think, yeah. Like so again, so I was pretty confident with my English. I only sent you one like English test. Remember that one test I sent you?
Hmm.
And you said that also, okay, like at best I'll give you 70 considering RBI is very bad. And RBI gave me 60, man. So yeah.
That was nice. Yeah. Okay, let's come to the interview. Let's come to the real deal now.
Okay, so for everyone who's asking about like sources and stuff, I will have like an entire write up of everything that I did, including sources, links to websites, and everything I used. I will post it. I'll give it to Anuj. He will send it out in an email. I will post it on Facebook. I'll do it. I'll do everything. So don't really be like, don't be disheartened if I don't answer your questions here,
Hmm.
because it's almost impossible to answer everyone's questions. So
Hmm.
take it easy. All right. Yeah, no worries. Okay, so something really funny happened for the interview. Right. So what had happened is, okay, so the interview PDF came out after like a week of wait. Like usually RBI posts in a week. So I think this time it came out a month later, a month and a half later.
Hmm.
And so what had happened is, okay, so RBI has requirements of all the biodata forms and attestation forms to give. I knew that, but I was so engulfed in work at that point of time because my branch was under regular audit. And when the auditor comes, everything goes. Right, everything's out the window. Like, okay, so again, those who are asking, I'm not a specialist officer. I am a generalist officer at Punjab National Bank. I have been recruited by the IBPS settlement, like by the IBPS thing. So that's that. So yeah, so I am like I'm the second, like I'm the in charge of my branch. Like that's how it works. So when the auditor came, everything went out the window. Like we were just with the audit. And so RBI in the instructions said that please courier us all these documents filled within 2 weeks from the date of result. It had been a month and a half. Like it was way past the 2 weeks date. And then I called Anuj. I was like, dude. And Anuj is like, I don't know, man. Just send it in and let's see. Like they might disqualify you. And I was almost disqualified this year. So I sent the documents to RBI. I called RBI, and there was very, I think so, very, like I called in and they said call this. So I had directly called the GM of HRD at RBI. Like I thought HRD deals with it, and then the GM of HRD is like, how did you get my number? I'm like, I got it off the internet, and they said, okay, listen, RBI SB deals with this. Please call RBI SB. Don't call me again. I'm like, okay, sir. And I called RBI SB. Then there was this lady. She was very helpful. Like straight off the bat, she told me, why are you sending it this late? I told her, I'm very sorry. I was caught up with this and this, and I completely forgot. So she understood. So she told me to courier it again. I couriered it. I called her, and luckily, out of all the call operators, she again picked up my call. And she said, yeah, the guy who sent in late. I'm like, yes, I'm the guy who sent it in late. And she picked up and she told me, okay. And then I asked her, when's the interview date? She said, much later. So this happened sometime in December. And then after that, my interview was on January 18th. It was at RBI Sansad Mark in Delhi. And so the interview again, so I was number 13 on the interview list. And again, there's this very poor misconception that the interview roll number and the interview roll order on the day is on the basis of your mains marks. No, it's not. Like it's not. Like RBI openly clarified that when we were there, and like this is like an internet myth. So
Hmm.
please bust that myth.
You would not be
Okay.
here if that was true.
No, I again here is a different thing. It's just I wouldn't have gotten a high rank. Like the high
Exactly,
rank
exactly.
depends completely on the main score, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So coming down to it,
Okay, so that's it.
yes.
That's about the disaster that you did. He gave me a call and I was like, get ready to stand in the line again. Probably they're not going to accept it anyways. It's too late. Uh,
No,
yeah,
RBI was very kind. They were
yeah,
kind enough to
yeah,
accept
yeah.
it and like let me take the interview. So that's kudos to them.
Because they must have created the list by then, so they
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
they probably get went through the entire struggle of preparing the list again, having you in that list again, and that was like impossible. If I was there, I would have said, dude, please try again. so
Yeah. No,
so
you kind of did tell me that like you can try your luck, but it's not gonna happen.
yeah, I was like, that's very difficult. Yeah, that's
Yeah. Anyhow, so
okay.
coming to
Now the
points,
interview, yeah, 46 in interview out of 50. So how did that happen?
I don't know. So see, preparation for the interview wasn't anything special because like again, how do you prepare for something when the man can ask you anything under the sun, right? But I think one important thing I did was that I ran like every possible scenario in my head. Like at the interview hall, I would like, what would they ask me? So those who don't know and who've never made it to the interview rounds, the Reserve Bank of India has two forms,
Hmm.
and both of these forms you fill it out and they've got a lot of information about you, your achievements, your 10th score, your 12th score, your preferences, your experiences, and all that jazz. So they've got all of that sorted, and the RBI never asks you to carry any documents into the interview hall. This is unlike any MBA interview, where in the MBA interview you carry like a bunch of documents and they look at it and be like, oh, aapne ye bhi kiya hai. No, RBI doesn't do that. RBI already knows what you're up to. So all of the questions are mostly generated from those two forms, right? So,
Hmm.
so again, on the basis of what I filled in, a Reserve Bank of India would ask me questions. So I ran any possible scenario. So possible scenario number one, economics background. I'm an economics graduate. Okay, they could go very hardcore on the economics graduate, or if they move towards my banking sector. So I'm currently a banker. I'm working in Punjab National Bank. I handle every aspect of my branch, being the general, being like the officer in charge. So I also go after lending, but I'm primarily posted in the recovery area of my branch. So where I have to perform recovery. So again, I studied RBI's recovery policy. I studied my bank's recovery policy. I studied my bank's balance sheet inside out. Like I knew what the quarterly things were and stuff like that. And you have to know these things if they ask, because it looks very bad that you don't know the place you're working with. What respect would you give RBI? So I think running, and again, I broke them into chains. So let's say if they ask me about my academics, economics. Okay, economics, which area of economics? Economics, what do you think of this area? So that's how it worked. If Punjab National Bank, okay, they could go towards the particular fraud that had happened last year. That could be of interest. From that fraud, they could ask me what is an letter of comfort, what is a letter of all this stuff. They could ask me NPA. NPA is a huge problem in our country. Everyone's constantly going on about NPA, so they could have gone after that.
Hmm.
Then my knowledge on NPA, how would I resolve it? So a bunch of stuff that could go that way. So again, this planning, micro planning in my head. And okay, so a very important thing that was going on at that time was RBI was very well highlighted in the news that time, where there was some stuff about the government of India taking RBI's contingency reserves and stuff like that. Then Urjit Patel had resigned as well. So a lot of conspiracy and like a lot of theories being put out for RBI. So it was very important to have an opinion. So again, this is very interview experience. Every candidate was asked their opinion on anything the panel asked them. So GST, do not tell me what GST is. They already know what that is. Just tell them, what do you think of GST? Implementation was right or no, or was it successful? Yes or no. If you were to implement it, how would you do it? So the panel was very interested in your process and your reasoning of the topic rather than just blurting out what the topic is. So that's a core thing to keep in mind. So I would use a friend's help. I would call her. I would be like, listen, this is the thing. Play the devil's advocate, or I will play the advocate, and then we would sort of balance out the point. Because you cannot sort of side with anything unanimously and then justify it to a panel that experienced. Because this is the panel that's seen the world, right? So it's almost impossible to justify anything straight away, right? So that's
So what you're saying is, in brief, what he actually did. So he says that he did not prepare for the interview, but what he did was exactly what was required. And what that is creating multiple chains in your head or on paper every day while you're preparing for the interview. So what I tell students when they visit me, when we have mock interviews, is that you have to prepare those chains either on paper or in your head. So he basically branched out from the root that was his biodata form. So biodata form is like the root. It has there can be multiple stems and there can be multiple branches coming out of that. So he understood how the tree could be created and he created that himself. That was number one that he did, and he did it beautifully. He did it subconsciously because he understood that he'll be able to take care of the entire biodata form that way, but consciously that's what you have to do. And the
Oh, and
second
also
thing.
I forgot to keep a copy of the biodata form myself. So I didn't that was it.
So he did not have the copy also. So pretty organized guy out there. He knows how to how to. So very conventional PNB kind of work scenario out there.
No. My bank works well because my branch is like tip top. That's the only thing. That's why I've been messing up everywhere else. Anywho's,
And the
I
second one
brought up
was references that you mentioned after you came out of the interview room. You mentioned to me.
yeah. Okay. So
Yes.
my interview was okay. I can tell the entire the entire audience how my interview went because my interview was only for 10 minutes. Like I went in and it was 1:30. I came out. It was 1:41. Like 30 seconds walking, 10 minutes of talking. Like that's how it worked for me. It
Hmm.
was pretty intense. Like I walked in, and so out of 6 questions, they asked me 6 questions. 4 were asked by the chairman of the committee, Mr. Amitabh Rajan. He asked me personally, and like as I walked in, I was sitting, and he said, "So, Mr. Ali, you're an economics graduate." Like that's how we started.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, I know which way this interview is gonna head. It's gonna go straight towards my economics background.
Hmm.
So again, he did not ask me anything theoretical. He just said, okay, so economics. I said, yes, sir. He said, which area of economics are you good at? So I thought to myself, he's going to ask me my best area and then ask me a question I can't answer and then insult me. But it didn't work that way. I said, sir, macroeconomics. Being at the mecca of macroeconomics, I said, I'm good at macroeconomics. Big, bold move. I went for broke.
Hmm.
So after that, he said, all right, Mr. Ali. He cites the Queen of England's speech from 2008.
Hmm.
He said, in 2008, the Queen of England was at the 75th anniversary of the London School of Economics, and she goes off track and starts condemning all economists. Why didn't you see it coming? So he asks me, with that reference to 2008, bring me full circle on what is the administrative role and the regulatory role of a financial regulator. That was question number one. And I was like, all right, sir, let's go.
Hmm.
So again, I had planned this. I had studied the 2008 crisis because that's like the biggest economic happening. So I answered his question. He seemed in agreement with me. So that was good. After answering his question, we moved to the next. He said, all right, with I had used a lot of references of Alan Greenspan, of Raghuram Rajan, of other Ben Bernanke, who was actually the Fed chair in charge back when the crisis had happened. So he was pretty satisfied with that. He said, all right, with all of that in mind, come home to India, define the autonomy of RBI. So the moment RBI's autonomy was asked, I knew where this interview is going to head to. It's going to head to government versus RBI, that entire farce that was happening back then. So I said, all right. So I was defining. So I said the Reserve Bank of India gets its autonomy from the RBI Act 1934, yada, yada, yada. I'd answered the question. So then what I said that I believe, I told the panel, I believe you are referring to the current friction. I used a very soft word, friction. The current friction between the government of India and the Reserve Bank of India. And this is what Mr. Rajan said to me. He said, yes, yes, I'm sure you must know all about it. Move on. So he did not want to know what the entire thing was. He just wanted to know what my opinion was. So then I put my opinion forward. He seemed in agreement. Then he said, I'll ask you one more question. And this question, like this is a step higher. I don't think you can answer it. So I thought to myself, why ask the question I can't answer? There's no point. But anyway, so he said, so the current Bimal Jalan committee, Mr. Bimal Jalan, the ex-RBI governor, so there's a committee under him that is supposed to give an answer to this entire financial structure of RBI, and does RBI have to give contingency and all that, like this entire thing. He says, what should be the outcome of that? So I put a slight joke in the middle. I said, well, that only Mr. Bimal Jalan knows.
Hmm.
So yeah, he said, all right. And then I gave him what hypotheses I had of the question. And I answered. Again, he seemed in agreement with whatever I said. So that worked my way. After that, he said, thank you. And he passed the floor to other people. Other people asked me two more questions. And they were like questions that they were not anywhere close to economics. They were just normal questions about RBI and about my work at PNB. But they were very easy questions. And they said, thank you very much. In and out in 10 minutes. That's it. Gone. And I got 46.
Hmm. Hmm. And what were the jokes? Yeah, you being funny in the interview. Like a lot of
Yeah, well,
students do that, and they conduct and there are normally very often disasters. So I would recommend that you don't do it unless you are good at it. Okay. Now he,
situational comedy, man.
yeah,
Situational comedy.
yes, situational comedy. So that's what you did, and it worked in your favor just because you knew how to pull it off. So let's have one of them here
Yeah.
again. Yeah.
No, no, there's nothing got to do with pulling off anything. I've got my shirts on, right? Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, so for interview, those who do make it and those who have not scored well, my only bit of advice would be number one, study the form by heart, the form you're filling, and also have confidence in whatever you're saying. Like you can say no. Not everybody is perfect,
Mhm.
right? But there are ways of saying no. I'm sorry, sir, I cannot recall. I I am unable to answer at the moment. I'm sorry, I don't like. If you say it with confidence, he will know. Okay, let me ask him something else to check him,
Hmm.
and not like drill him over that. So I mean, a lot of confidence goes a huge bit of way, but also you can't only bank on confidence. You
Hmm.
need to have some background with confidence. So
Hmm.
that's very important.
And one more thing that I noticed is that your answers were not conventional in nature, because he asked you about the spat between RBI and the government. You did not give a conventional answer. The answer that you gave was, very in depth, had a lot of backing behind it, had a lot of good references
That's
that you
partially
could justify.
because I was planning that RBI would ask me that.
Hmm.
Being an economist, my opinion matters in this sort of environment, especially in such a tense environment.
Hmm.
So I did prepare, like I prepared very heavily for this particular topic.
Hmm.
I studied how other central banks' finances worked. I studied how Bank of Japan works, how Bank of South Korea, how the Fed works,
Hmm.
and having an understanding. It's not the first time any central government has asked its central bank, "Do you really need that much money?" Right?
Hmm.
It's not like a, "Oh my God, how can you ask finances from the central bank?" Of course you can. So the whole point is justifying and sort of building a limit. So I mean, I answered to that level, and I did not, as Mr. Murnal would put it, कि चाय के ढाबे वाली बातें नहीं करी मैंने, कि चाय के ढाबे में जो बातें होती है अरे ये ले जाएगा, ऐसी बातें नहीं करनी. You've got to answer them with proper reasoning.
Yes, yes. So basically, what I saw, what I understood from your answers back then when you called me and we had a chat about this, was that your answers were not, limited to what newspapers were giving in those days, right? Because majority of the students were still relying on newspapers for their understanding of the friction, as you said, between RBI and the government. But your understanding and your knowledge about it was way deeper than what the newspapers were presenting. So what we can say or what we can conclude is you don't have to limit yourself to a newspaper when it comes to topics related to economics or topics related to RBI specifically.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like, see, it struck me straight away that if RBI as a central bank is being questioned by the central government, there must be other instances where people have, like, where other governments have asked questions from their banks. And many a times that has been asked. So many times that there's an actual paper in the BIS from it. Like, the paper is titled, Do Central Bank Need Financing Altogether? So, I mean, it's very important to consider that. And that happened because I was almost sure that they will ask me that question,
Hmm.
being from my economics background and given the current spat. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
but again, this was a very 10-minute interview. So I walked in, I walked out, and I was like, yeah, I came all this way for 10 minutes. It felt that
Hmm.
way.
But it went in your favor. Yeah. But I
Yes,
think,
it
but I
did. I
think,
mean,
but
I
I
was
think,
quite surprised.
yes, I think, two conclusions that I have made that I have noted down that I've told him that, two things that he has done beautifully that a lot of students who don't get through, don't do is that number one, he's involved himself in active reading all the way, whether it's phase one, whether it's phase two, or the interview. Now, that is something we as Indians don't do because we've not been taught that way. Our education system does not work. It's more focused on rote learning, and that's why we learn to learn. Okay, so we just involve ourselves in rote learning and passive reading. What he did, on the other hand, was active reading, which is very heavy. In half an hour, you would be tired if you start doing it now, but you have to get used to it, whether it's RBI, whether it's any other exam. Go Google it, read about it, read about what active reading is. You will find a lot of videos also on YouTube. He did it subconsciously, probably because he's picked it up somehow, but everybody has to do it if you want to get through it in your first attempt. And second thing that you did that I noted down in the interview was that you used a lot of references. Now that was a very smart play. You did it subconsciously, you did not realize it, but what you're doing by giving references is that you are justifying the point that you're making, and so the guy in front of you cannot question you anymore because it's not your opinion, it's the opinion
And of
of
course,
a
you've got to
third
bring up
person.
Raghuram Rajan whenever RBI comes up.
Yeah, so that was
The
a
idol,
beautiful.
man. He's the idol.
He's the idol. So rather than just pointing out his words and showcasing it as if it's your opinion, why not give the credit to that guy so that they cannot question it anymore? So that was something that was really nice. That was a nice play that you did. Subconscious again, but people can do it and they should do it. Uh, any exam, whether it's RBI interview or any interview. Okay, I think it's a beautiful
Yes.
thing. It's a nice thing to do. Okay, lot
I
of
think I'll answer a few questions because there's a lot of
yes,
questions going by.
yes,
I
lot of
think
questions.
we're done with like my entire journey.
Huh.
And don't worry if anybody, like, I mean, this is like this live session will not be the last. I will post anything and everything regarding my preparation on any available media. So please, like, don't feel like you'll be left out because it's very hard to cover like what 500 odd people in like a session this small, right? So don't worry about that. So now let's start answering questions.
Hmm.
I mean, have you noted down any questions which you really want me to answer, or like I'll just pick it
Yes.
up from there?
No, I have some of them. Of course, a lot of questions coming from the same area, educational background in colleges. Does your educational background,
No,
your
no, not at
college,
all, not at all,
your work
not at all.
ex, your work ex?
Work experience, see, it only plays to your interview strengths. Of course, like, see, I am a person who's been going it like a straight arrow. College, straight away into a good bank, now into the Reserve Bank of India. So, of course, it works in my favor, and that cannot be disregarded,
Hmm.
right? But like the RBI committee will straight away say no just because you've been sitting at home preparing for 3 years does not make sense because the committee is looking for people who will work at RBI and they are not like Come on, they'll not be that biased. You have to justify it. I mean, you if you're preparing for UPSC for 2.5 to 3 years, it's justifiable. It's a difficult examination, right? So that's very important.
Okay, that
Okay.
question answered. Educational background, colleges don't matter a lot. Of course, you get a start, you get a head start if you have good educational background, if you have gone to esteemed colleges. But at the same time,
Hmm.
it's a double-edged sword because again, they're expecting more from you. So the starters are going to be heavier if you're not able to
Yeah.
justify.
So it goes both ways. If you have a
Yes.
very very modest background and your interview and you surprise them in the interview with your knowledge,
Hmm.
you will get a very high score. If you have a stellar background
Hmm.
and they expect something from you and you mess it up over there, you will have a very poor score. If you have a stellar background and they ask you a few questions and you nail it, a very high score. I mean, see, these people are also human beings, right? So you've got to understand, and no two committees will give you the same interview score. I mean, on the very same day, you can go to another committee and they will score you. I don't know. They would have scored me 32, not 46, right? It's a very spur of the moment kind of deal.
Hmm.
So you've really got to go for that,
Okay,
right?
yeah. Next
Okay.
question. A lot of students, I think majority of them are engineering students who have
Yeah, yeah,
engineering background. So what about them? Because you had some head start with respect to economics or finance. So
yeah, of course.
the question is, how do they prepare?
See, being an econ graduate, it does help. Like, I don't really need to go read what the concept of GDP is or what a balance of payments is. But understand, I've been working in PNB for what 15, 16 months now. So I forget those things. The only difference between me and an engineering background is going to be that I will read it once and get back everything, and he will have to read it a couple more times, right?
Hmm.
So again, I did not use books, and even you don't have to use books simply because they are not going to ask you a very, very bookish definition. So, for engineering graduates or for anybody who's not an economics background, you can use Murnal's study sources. Murnal Patel, thank you very much. If you ever watch this video, right? Brilliant. It's such a good overview of the entire Indian economy and how India gets its GDP done, and all the other things like WPI, CPI, weighted CPI, and all those other things like CPI rural. So Murnal Patel is very, very good. Use Murnal, go for it. Indian economy, Murnal, more than sufficient. You don't have to read all those um, Uma Kapila and stuff like that because all of that is like very Indian economy ka history. 5 year plans and the pros and cons of 5 year plans. You don't need that for the RBI interview.
Hmm.
At best, the RBI will ask you when was the sixth 5 year plan.
Hmm.
That's it. They will not ask you a very depth question about it. So you don't really need a book that far.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
Yes, Hindi can be chosen in the interview, Mr. Snahak. Hindi can be chosen.
Padmavati.
They
Hmm.
ask a question like they ask mode of interview
Hmm.
क्या होना चाहिए.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Another question, management. Did you use any sources? Did you use Google primarily? What did you use?
See, management. I used your content.
Hmm.
You had like okay, so even you use books, right? I
Hmm.
mean, at the beginning, you've mentioned that all these books are like some Robbins and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So I used your content for the basics.
Hmm.
After that, okay, so coming off the back of one attempt in 2017, RBI asks all sorts of questions from anywhere.
Hmm.
There is literally no guarantee that they can ask something. So what you do is for management is that you Google everything. There aren't many topics left in management: motivation, organizational behavior, stuff like that. And there'll be many, many links that they have. Start reading them. So there'll be conventional theories, which are these are theories that you will find in books. Proper Abraham Maslow, Taylor, and all that, Hawthorne studies. This is like the gold standard. This will be asked regardless.
Hmm.
But then there are more unconventional or sort of, let's say, modern theories. These are more mainly in papers or in many, many like updated journals of business.
Hmm.
So all of that stuff you just need to gloss over because it's all built from these old theories.
Hmm.
But again, that's how it works. So management, Google, like Google's your best friend in management. Do it. I will, in my whatever guidance letter I give to candidates, I will post all the sources I used. I do have hyperlinks to them, so that's fine. Also, again, for engineering people, I'm so sorry I have to go back to this.
Hmm.
For economics, if you want to truly understand how the Indian economy, it's a very Indianized paper,
Hmm.
how the Indian economy defines and works, use Arthapedia.
Hmm.
Arthapedia is like the official government like source.
Hmm.
Like come on, like it's defined everything.
Hmm.
They define CI, they WPI, they define the GDP, they define everything. So use Arthapedia to a very good use. I used it a couple of times. That would be very, very beneficial for you. Okay.
Banker Sadda. Okay, another question. Banker Sadda. Is it alone on a standalone basis enough for phase one general awareness or not? That's the
Yeah,
question.
in my opinion, yes.
Okay,
In my opinion, yes.
okay. In my opinion, no, it's not enough.
In my opinion, yes.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
I would not agree with that. I don't know your scores about in phase one, but I think Banker Sadda we cover it on a daily basis,
Banker,
and
phase one, I don't remember, but I scored, I think so, 53 in GK.
hmm. So did
I
you
scored
use only Banker Adda or did you use the stuff
Banker
that
Adda
I?
and your stuff as well, na?
Yes, yes. So that's what, na. So now what happens? What's happening is Banker Adda gives only, let's say, like 30-40% of daily news. Okay, the remaining is missed out. So you have to cover it from elsewhere. Otherwise, you're missing out on a lot of things. Of course, whatever it gives is done beautifully. So that is all going to be very helpful.
Yeah. Again, so wait, I've read a few questions here.
Hmm.
Mm, 10th, 12th percentage. See, as long as you're meeting RBI's criteria, there is no reason for you to feel that you are not going to be selected or is there some disadvantage. Like some people told me, so I was 22 when I applied for the exam. I turned 23 in September. So again, age doesn't matter. I mean, why would RBI put 21 as the age limit if they did not want people from 21? They could have put it 25 straight away, right? So if you meet their eligibility criteria, you have as good a shot as me at this examination. Like, do disregard everything that you've done because the committee doesn't really care if you're like a gold medalist or just who got into the criteria limit. All they want to see is whether you'll be able to work at RBI to the way they think you should, like they think an RBI ideal IBI officer needs to work. So do not be like disheartened with like if you've got like 70s or something in your 12th. It's not that big of a deal.
Hmm. Okay, okay. One more question a student is asking again and again, and I think it's very important. Since you focused, hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. Carry
Yes.
on.
Okay. Since you focus a lot on current affairs for phase two, FM and ESI, the question
Yeah.
is except current, what all is important? So I'm reframing the question. How important is the syllabus of FM and ESI for phase two?
See, ESI goes out the window. RBI, I don't know what it does. Like, to be honest, like even like just the day before the examination, I was not confident with my ESI preparation because this stuff never ends. Economics and social issues, they never end, right? So I can't really, like, again, this is, I'm being very honest, I can't like give you some sort of masterclass guidance for ESI simply because I scored 75, well done, but I don't think I can do it again. Finance, I probably could. Finance, I probably could score 85 plus again.
Hmm.
But ESI, I cannot like guarantee that yes, if I did this, I'd definitely score 75, 80 again.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Hmm.
But for again, what I did notice is that RBI has definitions question. Like they ask you to define GDP, they ask you to define inflation, they ask you what the weighted base for the inflation is, what the base year is, and stuff like that. And also, they are static questions from current affairs, like who's the chairman of the IBBI or who's the chairman of the stuff like that. So I mean, again, a lot of it goes. ESI is completely current affairs based. Current affairs, government of India schemes, and 10 to 12 marks random,
Hmm.
right? So don't be afraid of that.
Hmm.
FM, on the other hand, is more syllabus based. Finance and management, all like everyone, like they should follow the syllabus to the letter. Like RBI has oriented themselves. Do not be afraid of, let's say, numericals. Okay, because numericals, what Anuj provides is good enough, and if you aren't subscribed to him, then you can ask for like basic examples of numericals. Again, RBI is not looking for people who they want to use for financial modeling and stuff. They are looking for officers who can manage every department, right? Like even the governor, like the governor does not go out there making policies on his own. It's his managed to run the, like it's his thing to go for it, right?
Hmm.
So I understand it this way,
Hmm.
that you've got to study everything and prepare for it all. RBI wants literally a jack of all trades, master of none.
So what you're saying is the syllabus is important, especially in
Oh,
FM.
very important.
Yes, yes. And that's what I've been telling students. The ratio is 70-30. 70 the syllabus, 30 current affairs in FM. In ESI, it used to be 70-30-70, 30 syllabus, 70 current, and now it's moving more towards current affairs. So probably 20-80 this time. Okay, so. Yes, the
Yeah,
syllabus is specifically very important as a part of FM. The kind of current
yeah.
affairs question, I think Prabhu is asking what kind of current affairs question in FM and management. Not in management, only in finance. Questions
Finance,
related to
yes.
Indian financial system, Indian banking,
Indian
how
banking,
RBI works.
like what is the classification of P2P lenders and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, another pro tip to everyone, like everyone out there listening. The RBI's website is got to be your holy grail, like it's your Bible. Read it. So the RBI has go to the RBI website, rbi.org, and just go down there and read the FAQs. So anything you want to learn, priority sector lending targets, ATM norms, banking norms, white label, whatever label ATMs there are,
Hmm.
just read it from the RBI website. That is like the most authentic source you can get. So read anything from
Hmm.
RBI's website. Like
Hmm.
read everything. A lot of questions come from there. The RBI's website is like a pro tip.
Hmm.
I don't know how, like I can't stress it enough. I completely forgot about this, but use the RBI's website to your to your benefit. Like everything is gonna come from there,
Hmm.
and any static part is gonna come from there. Pakka, that's for sure.
But at the same time, you don't have to drown yourself into the in the
Yeah.
website, because a lot of students, what they do is they'll take printouts of the entire thing, probably a
No,
thousand
no,
pages,
no.
and
You
then
just
they'll be
read
like,
it.
yes.
No, no. RBI's got a database. Like I mean,
Hmm.
RBI doesn't have to study it. You have
Hmm.
to.
Hmm.
So be very, very picky with what you want to study.
Yes, I think that's very important. If there is a, let's say, a speech of 50 pages, probably only 5 pages are important for you. So it's important that you pick out what's important, right?
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, that's the entire battle.
Hmm.
Because when you're crunched for time, you always pick out what is important
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
study it,
Hmm.
and then hope for the best.
Yeah. So, Ojasvi is asking Agnihotri books to follow for FM and ESI. He did not follow any books.
Didn't have the time for books.
Didn't have the time for books. He used notes. He used the internet very wisely. He used a lot of websites, and what he said
Yes,
about.
again, Kumaresh M. How to cover economic survey and budget. Okay,
Hmm.
so these are huge documents. Like economic survey on its own is a huge document, right?
Hmm.
So again, and last year's economic survey came in two parts: part one, part two. Part two was very data heavy. Part one was very theory heavy. So okay, the economic survey per se is not like it does have a few direct questions from it, but I've seen RBI hover around the survey now and not actually use it from the survey. So economic survey, I read the economic survey cover to cover. I'll be honest, I read the whole thing, but I did not read it like as if like making notes and writing. I sat down, read 30, 40 pages, kept it, read 30, 40 pages again, kept it. And in this way, in about a week or so, I covered the entire survey. I think so. Only the first volume. The first volume was like what, 70, like was 320, 325 pages. It
Hmm.
wasn't a lot.
Hmm.
So that way. So it is important to cover the survey. What the survey does is, number one, it gives you good amount of fodder for essay,
Hmm.
right? Essay ke liye it's very helpful. Like I mean, every essay question could be answered by reading the survey. I'm almost certain. Like I remember the topics in essay, all of them could be answered if you read the economic survey, because Mr. I mean, so we have a different chief economic advisor now. So, but Mr. Arvind Subramanian was very generous with his explanations. So it was really, really helpful reading the survey that way.
Hmm.
And also, do not worry about a particular data if you come across in the economic survey. Like memorize it if you have to. But again, the odds of them picking that particular data to a question are so small that in like a like a small minority of people would even get it right if it ever showed up in the paper. And even RBI knows that, so there's no point in like building a question of such a specific data from one page of the survey. Like think of it that was a question setter. You want questions that eliminate people and not like set up a paper that nobody can crack.
Hmm.
So again, reading the survey is very important. I used a pen and I marked a lot of stuff in and around the survey and
Hmm.
wrote data, I think, which was important. But I never stressed too heavily on it, simply because one single point out of like a what 600-page booklet cannot really be justified as a question that I had to answer.
Hmm.
Like I feel sad if I couldn't answer an easy question like what is the balance of payments, but I would never feel sad if I couldn't ask her some obscure question like what is like the some rate of some economy of some percentage growth. There's no point in that question.
Hmm.
That's the kind of question you have to leave.
Hmm. Okay, okay. But I would disagree with you on one point, and the reason I'll give you the reason as well.
Sure, sure.
You went through the survey just because you are an econ graduate and you could understand majority of those things.
Exactly,
Let's say 60
exactly.
70% of those things you did not have to go back and forth and try and understand what exactly Arvind Subramanian was trying to, specify, or was what he was trying to say. So that was more like a novel for you, rather than a booklet that you had to cover for the exam.
True, true. Put it that way, it is true.
Right.
I mean, I didn't have to refer to a lot of terms because I knew the terms anyways.
Yes.
At least I understood what the terms were.
Yes. But a lot of students out there will find it problematic, difficult, and
It's all the more helpful. Just Google those terms, and you'll have better ESI preparation as well.
yes, yes. So you either you go through the entire survey, Google all those terms that he's saying, and
Mr. Nikhil 1247. So economic survey for 2019.
hmm,
Okay, this is a transition year.
hmm,
So the survey, I don't know how useful it's gonna be,
hmm,
but a Niti Aayog's documents. I
hmm,
believe Niti Aayog came out with like a bunch of documents this time around,
hmm,
and that could be very, very valuable for the examination this year.
hmm.
Sorry if I'm a little rusty, but I am already selected, so yeah, put it that way.
Yeah, the survey might not even come out when the exam is held. If it does, we'll be covering it. If it does not,
Yeah.
we are already covering Niti Aayog report, and I think he's put a very important point there. That's going to be very important, especially for as a roundup for entire 2018, and it's also got some great opinions. In case you end up going to the interview, you will find that very useful, because the opinion that Niti Aayog is giving you is the opinion that government holds, is the opinion that probably RBI wants to listen. Okay, so that's important. The chain is important there. Okay, a lot of students are asking this particular question, that is, if you could create a strategy for them to prepare. Not now. We'll probably have another session, and that might be specific to this question that they have. What if
See,
they
okay,
start now?
okay. What if you start now? See, that is a very off question. What if RBI puts the notification next week? What are you going to do then? Right.
Yes.
So that's not how it works.
Hmm.
But okay, see, I get what you're saying. Let's say starting from zero, and you've got, let's say, 4 to 5 months in hand. It is a very crackable exam. Like, to be honest, I started studying. Okay, so I closed. We had the yearly closing last year, and I was in Calcutta, and I was working in like a very huge branch. So I had literally no time. I would come back home at 11, go back home, go back to office next day 8 o'clock. So, and that to Saturday Sundays. Like, we would work all the time. So I started sometime April, like proper preparation. I would read back and forth a lot in those previous months, but let's say prep started sometime in like April, after I got posted in like my current branch. So I would definitely build, and I would build the strategy from like the viewpoint of, let's say, somebody who's from like a commerce/economics background, and somebody who's from like zero background. Like, let's say you're from some degree, like, I don't know, physics or psychology or something of that sort, and we could build up from there.
Hmm.
I would help as much as I could, but my advice to everyone is going to be like a lot that understand yourself and what works for you. I got by reading a lot because I read and read and read over and again, and it stuck to my mind. But if reading doesn't work for you, start writing a little bit. Like, figure out yourself, like, understand what works for you, and then utilize it to the best of your extent with guidance from everyone. Like, there are 127 people who were selected this year, right? Including the DPR and everything, right? I can assure you, all 127 people will give you different tidbits of advice because they have tailored the strategy to what they are and what they're comfortable with. कोई रात भर पढ़ता है, कोई दिन में उठ के पढ़ता है,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
What is important is that you understand that you're gaining ground every day, and you're covering it in a way that helps you remember
Hmm.
and study and help you be better towards whatever the RBI exam demands. Shubham Mittal, yeah. This is a very good question. How do you prepare paragraph questions like NRI scholarship, SC scholarship, and stuff? Okay, so this comes down to test taking. There are some things you can never prepare for. Like this year, RBI had asked some scheme from 1990. Again, this is a scheme from way before I was born. Like, what the heck? So nobody prepares for this. But when you read the question and when you read the answer option had like, okay, so the question was, what was the scheme's purpose? And the scheme's purpose, my answer options had lots of Manrega, like and safety for farm seeds and stuff like that. So they had very downright unusual options which you could easily eliminate. So that helped in my favor. Like if I could eliminate 3 options out of 5, I would attempt that question for sure. Like I would. Like it's like a no-brainer. 50% risk, no problem. I'll take it. All right. Similarly, this NRI scholarship wala, question. I remember I attempted this simply because okay, so the question was what's the scholarship, and they had unusual amounts like $100, $200. Come on, if somebody's gonna get a scholarship to study in India, it's got to be at least $1,000, right?
Hmm.
And that's what happened. So I would able to eliminate 2 options, and in the end, I was stuck with $3,000 and $2,000, and I picked some option I don't remember.
Hmm.
And also another question, SC/ST scholarship related. So this was for under which ministry does this scheme come? Come
Hmm.
on, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. This
Hmm.
is so basic. Anything for empowering people, it
Hmm.
has to come under that ministry. So that's like a no-brainer, two marker, that 2 marks.
Hmm.
So it's not like RBI only asks tough questions. RBI will ask easy questions. You must be calm enough to pick it up.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's all.
Okay, two more questions connected. Importance of newspaper daily basis and current affairs. How many months is required?
Okay. So when I was in Calcutta, I did have the liberty of reading the newspaper in the morning.
Hmm.
I could, like, when I was walking towards my bank, I would buy a newspaper and I'd read. But once I'd moved towards the more rural posting, my current posting is rural. I
Hmm.
didn't have that liberty because my commute is 40 kilometers. Right. So see, reading newspaper every day would most certainly help. Like there's no way it will not help. Of course, like it will make you a better person straight off the bat. You would have better English, better reasoning,
Hmm.
better current affairs, better everything.
Hmm.
But is it like you cannot crack the exam without newspaper? No, I'm sorry. Most certainly you can. Like there's lots of sources to study GK from.
Hmm.
I think newspaper and stuff becomes really important only in the interview phases,
Hmm.
to put it that way.
And connected to that, another question: Yojana and Kurukshetra. Did you cover those?
No, no, no.
Not
I
at
didn't
all.
have the time, man.
You did not have the time, and they're not
I,
even required. Yeah.
yeah, so I use Vision IS ka,
Hmm.
schemes.
Hmm.
Schemes document. They have like an entire 121 page document.
Hmm.
Vision IS schemes. Use that. Perfect.
Hmm.
Like I mean, perfect. That was my primary go-to source.
Hmm.
After that, and okay, how many months of current affairs?
Yes.
See, months of current affairs is very hard to define because they asked a scheme from 1990. So I can't go back to what, like multiply those many months, like 100 months, right? It won't work that way.
Hmm.
So I think if you want to put it in months, I think 6 to 8 months is sufficient.
Hmm.
Better make it a year just for that because some things do linger on to the next year.
Hmm.
Like if you did something, let's say the insolvency code
Hmm.
that came around way back in 2016, 2017, but it came in the RBI 2018 examination, right?
Hmm.
So you can't call it a current affair topic, but it's like a very theoretical topic. So I think 1 year should be sufficient. But if
Hmm.
you're pressed for time, 6 to 8 months is very good.
Hmm. Hmm. So this is for phase two. This is for phase two.
Phase two.
Phase one.
Again, all of this is for reference. Phase two. Phase one, I like phase one. You have to clear it because it doesn't count for the anything, right?
Hmm.
Quant hai, reasoning hai, English hai, GK hai.
Hmm.
GK is a common thread throughout.
Hmm.
Study it very very well.
Hmm.
Quant and reasoning, figure out if you're very bad at all three. You have to get going from today.
Hmm.
Like take a mock today. Like a fair bit of advice to everybody. Phase one ho, phase two ho. Take mocks liberally. Score pathetic in mocks. It's fine. The only score that matters is your final score, and that's it. So fail 100 times, but the 101 paper you take in the final day should be the passing paper.
Hmm.
It's fine.
So you don't have to be afraid of the mocks that you take,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Don't be afraid, man. Kitna
yes,
zero jo milega, zero le aao.
don't get bogged down by it. Yeah. Uh, Questions are not ending, and I don't know how to end the session without answering all the questions. But I think all the important ones, all the relevant ones, we've tried to answer this time. Probably, sometime again before you go and join RBI, we'll have another session, and I think we should start, or we can start. We'll have your take also on this. Let's say we start on if a student is starting today, how do they plan out their studies? Because
Yeah, yeah. We will sort of get to it.
because I see a lot of people, majority of the students, and including me when I was studying, we don't know how to plan out things. We don't know how to strategize our prep.
Well,
Uh,
see, any strategy is only going to be what works for you. So I
hmm,
will tell you how to strategize. I cannot tell you what the strategy is. I'll
hmm,
just tell you how to strategize.
hmm,
I think that's important.
hmm, hmm, hmm. Okay, I think we've had enough. I think the students might also be bored by now. ठीक है
Yeah.
ठीक है let's finish it today. Thanks so much. I think it's beautiful. We had
Yeah.
a long one hour session
Thank you,
today.
Anuj. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, yeah. All the very best for your another journey in RBI.
All right.
Hopefully we'll stay in touch. Okay.
So,
Bye
yeah. All
bye.
right. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. Take care.